Okay, we are in Ein Yaakov. Please subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, hit the bell, and it'll ring when you have a new class. Okay, so we're now on 34a2 in the outscroll, and we're at the part that says three things that a man should ask in the midst of his house on Erev Shabbos. That's where we are, and it's going to be. It should be at the very beginning. I'll just give you the lead into this. The Mishnah, which is good information for you. So the Mishnah before had said there are three things that a man needs to ask in his house on Erev Shabbat with just before dark. And what are they? Isartam, have you tithed the produce that we will eat for the Shabbat meal? Because if you didn't take the tithes for the produce, you're not allowed to eat it. Okay. Eravtem, have you prepared the Eruv so that we can, this is talking about the Eruv Techuma and Eruv Chaser. We have two types of Eruvim. The mix, and he explains it's a mechanism by which one may be allowed to walk more than the usually permitted 2,000 amot, which is approximately half a mile, from his dwelling. The principle behind this Eruv is that by placing food at another location, one establishes his quote-unquote Shabbat residence in a place other than where he actually is, which enables him to proceed from his actual location to the point and then 2,000 hours beyond that. We're talking about in a place where there's not houses after house after house after house like here. It's constant. You don't have to worry about it as much. But if I would be in a farming community where there's one house and then 20 acres and whatever it's going to be, so there I'd have to create an Eruv Chaserot in order to be able to walk a certain distance. Okay?
Sorry, so I'm trying to. They're talking about more of a farm, not a town or village area. They're
Correct.
talking about
Once you have, like here, if I have house after house after house, so then it's not considered. This is not what they were talking about. They're talking about an open fields. Open fields. Like the truth is, if I walk on Miami, so you have all those. Once you leave, get near the golf course, now you're entering a place where you would have to make an Erev Techum.
Why would you be there on the Sabbath? Why would you be out in the field? You're not doing any work.
Because you want to get to the other place.
What other place?
In other words, you want to visit somebody.
The only place to get to is the synagogue.
Okay, so you want to get to the synagogue. You want to get to a new lecture. There's a lecture going on. There's a lecture going on in the next place. It would only
matter if you needed to carry something, right?
No, you have to walk. You're walking. I'm not allowed to walk outside.
Once you leave the populated area.
I'm only allowed. I'm limited to where I can walk.
Okay.
So I have to be careful. Again, here
more spread
the odds are, for us, we can walk and walk and walk and walk and walk.
So we're not talking about carrying something.
Right.
So how would they? So for just walking, then you don't need to establish a boundary per se with the.
That was a stretch.
Lechis and with the post and the wire.
It needs to establish an Eruv Chaser where I'm going to eat. So I want to make that my Shabbos residence so I can walk an additional 1,000 hours.
And carrying food with them would have been.
That would have been forbidden, and that's here. And the Eruv Chaserot, that's the other Eruv, is a mechanism that allows people to carry from their houses to an enclosed courtyard, jointly used by the occupants of more than one dwelling. Like if I live in a common area in the apartment complex. Okay. This Eruv is established by collecting a loaf of bread before the Shabbat from each of the dwellings, which open into the yard, and placing it in one of those dwellings for the duration of the Shabbat. And that's basically what we do with the Eruv around town. We take the bread and we put it into the synagogue. So that's where everybody, they usually use challah because that way it won't spoil. So I'm sorry, matzah, because that way it won't spoil.
So you're being from the Boston area, I'll tell you that. So we heard a story where there was from Rabbi Cohn that his grandfather, he's from that area. His grandfather, there used to be a farming community of Jewish farmers somewhere Malden, past Boston someplace. He remembers when he was little going to his grandfather's farm for Shabbos, and there was enough Jewish farmers that they had, somebody had a little building on their land. It was a shul, and they would all central, I guess. They would walk there, so they would have to have established this.
Correct. And he says this allows us to view all the houses opening into this courtyard as owned by a single consortium and lifts the rabbinic prohibition against carrying from one private domain to another that would have otherwise applied. By rabbinic decree, it is forbidden to set up one of these Eruvim on Shabbat because each involves some sort of acquisitory act. And making acquisitions on the Shabbat is rabbinically prohibited. And establishing Erev Techumen, again, that's the borders, a person acquires the place of the Erev of his new Shabbat residence, thus allowing him to walk 2,000 amos from that point, and establishing an Erev Chatzera, a group of people acquire a share in a common residence. So again, when we make our Erev on there, what we've done is acquired all of the area from the mayor or whatever city official we used to acquire everybody's property to make it one single property or one single consortium of property. So it's absolutely has no legal ramifications for all those who are watching. I didn't buy your house, but it has a religious implication. Yeah. So you're going to ask. You had a question.
Well, I asked already why they would be traveling.
Oh, that's so again.
Does somebody watch over this food collection, or on what basis is it doled out and to whom?
No, if let's say I wanted to go to, let's say you were having a special lecture at your house, and you were outside of the boundary, okay? But if I would put a loaf of bread in the middle point, I could get from my house to your house because I'm creating a new boundary. I'm moving the border. So that's what I have to look for. Or, you know what, I'll use it this. Think of zoning. Think of zoning. The Torah Center originally had less property than it does now, okay? But in order for us to create what we need to do, we had to rezone the house next to us, which of course was owned by the same person who owns this property. So what does the city care? You want to give up property to that plot, to this plot? We don't care. But we had to rezone it. And so you have to go through all that paperwork to rezone it so that we could build what we had to build. So think of my Erev Techumen as a rezoning. I move my border from one place to the next place, and I'm responsible for that. I have to go through the legwork to do it. If you want to make it, you're responsible. In other words, this is an individual thing. So the same thing was in the Erev Chatzerot. We are rezoning. Again, just look at rezoning, so and it makes it answers everything up.
The bread like within central reach of a
which one are we talking about? I want to walk past the border
for walking.
Again.
By moving.
What I want to do is I'm going to put it at the extreme point of my border, and then I put the break there, and I've rezoned myself.
The is I have kavana. I have intent now that I can walk within.
That's my new right.
That's my bread there.
Because I rezoned it, and I made that my Shabbos home. I made that right.
Yeah.
So I've rezoned it. I've moved the line.
Does each person, when I asked you who
Each person can do it. Each person must do it. If they want to move, they must do that.
So if you do it with your loaf of bread, I think maybe what Steve's getting at, what I'm asking out is that then can everybody?
No, you have to join with me.
People can
You
say,
can all join
I will
together.
join with you and we'll jointly own this loaf of bread.
And you're entitled to only what you have put there yourself in that central place?
Again, are we talking about border to walk?
As opposed to
As border to carry. To carry is that's a different one where I centralize that, and then I'm having everybody has to be part of that. Everybody has to be part of that.
So that's more like potluck.
Well, again, I have to just have enough to make a motzi, but it's not. So that's why they take a box of
And
matzah.
they went through this every Shabbat, before every.
Well, sometimes it depends. If they want to make an Erev Chatzerot, usually do it once a year, and that's what I'm saying. Use matzah because that will last. If you use bread, it's going to Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to last. So, but that's how you would do it. But that's again your rezoning. That's the best way to say this. You're rezoning the place. So I'm now creating a consortium of which wasn't there originally. You know, when I bought a house in this block, and the person across and my neighbor and so on and so forth. Well, we all have our lawns, right? It's not I don't own my neighbor's lawn. My neighbor doesn't own my lawn. I have to mow mine. He has to mow his, right? That's how as simple as it gets. Now, what happens is comes Shabbos, and I want to carry my siddur from my house to Torah Center. Well, I can't do that because there's public, quote unquote, public property. So in order to get rid of that restriction,
It's not work if you're within your own zone.
right? So in order to get rid of that restriction, I rezone it to all be mine, or we all agree that is ours. It goes to a joint property. So now it's no longer public property. It's my private property.
So you have permission to walk across because everybody agreed.
Because we all own it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's mine.
So now it's a question of sustenance rather than doing work. You would not be carrying.
I'm allowed to carry in my house all I want. I'm allowed to carry in this house all I want. There's no problem with me carrying this house. But I cannot carry a paperclip from this house outside if I don't have an Eruv. That's the law. It has nothing to do with work. It has to do with, it's what we call malacha, which is translated as work, but it's not work as in you can sweat. It's just, I cannot go from private to public or private or public to private. That I cannot do. But if I create the whole thing as a public property, private property, that I can carry, like I would in my own house. So the same thing here. So what happens is, I've taken this, by the way, we have to understand one other thing for all the people who are watching here. I really haven't done anything strange. Because if this really was public property, if I was in the middle of Manhattan, where you have 600,000 people walking back and forth all day long, or driving, or in Chicago, you have some places that they claim 600,000 people are driving through there. That is impossible to make that a private property. It's impossible. You cannot do it. And therefore, I cannot make an Eruv in those places. It's impossible. Okay? That's what they would tell me. On the other hand, when I don't have 600,000 people walking through, so then, according to the Torah, it's not a public property. Rabbinically it is, because we want to maintain our things. We want to make a fence around it. In other words, if I'm going to carry here all day long through everything, so now when I go to the big city, I'm also going to think I can carry. So the rabbi said, no. Let's make our little dollar, our homes, private property, that's what they are. Everything else is public, but that's rabbinics. So once I get into the rabbinic, I can also override the rabbinic by becoming partners. So because the Torah doesn't say that. Torah is saying you have private property, so you can carry from private, no problem. But it's either, according to the Torah, there's only two types of property, public or private. That's it. There's nothing in the middle. We rabbinically have created the middle. So as a result of creating the middle, we can now move those, we can rezone when we have to. Again, that's what it is. Okay, so I think that's the easiest way to understand that for all the people in the YouTube world. But that's what we'll name. I'm going to rename it. YouTube.
Maybe we should back up and talk about walled cities. Is where it all started from?
No,
No?
it didn't want. It started from the Mishkan.
What's that?
Oh, from
the tabernacle. The tabernacle.
But they did this and this, and then on Shabbos they stopped.
Right. What they would have to do is they would have to move the planks from the wagon to the other, from off the wagon to the other place, and that was forbidden. That's private to public. So that's all from the Torah. That's straight.
So how do we get the concept of the walled city allowing to carry?
Because that's all considered one property. I've walled it.
And everybody agreed apparently.
Well, you're living in my city.
Yeah.
You're living in my city. So
Ah,
by definition,
okay,
you've
okay.
you again you have to mow your own lawn, but we
Yeah.
have no. I should say you know again in the walled city, it's no longer it's no longer public property because not everybody can. What's the definition of public property? What's the definition?
Anybody can use.
Anybody can use it. If I make a walled city, it's no longer public.
Oh, so it's all one big private courtyard.
Right. So now what happens is again, the rabbi said,
Ah.
if I have a walled city
Yeah.
where it's all private, again, so I'm going to carry,
Yeah.
right? But if I carry and then I walk outside the city, I've broken the Torah.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. So now I'm training you about this need for an Erev. So I'm going to say everybody has to agree to cede their property. Again, if I'm in an apartment building and they have a common ground.
Oh.
So the
hallway that connects everything.
the hallway,
Yeah.
even there, the hallway, you have to make an Erev.
Ah, yeah.
Make an Erev or you can't carry.
Ah.
So yeah, okay, I didn't really get into that stuff, but okay. Then it says, I just want to give you the background for the suffix. So that's the thing you have to ask. And lastly, Hidliku, did you light the Shabbos candles? Okay, so he says lighting the Shabbat candles is important for peaceful, harmonious Shabbat. Since without them, one is prone to stumbling in the dark. Again, I always like to use Dick Van Dyke for this. If you remember the old Dick Van Dyke show, she walked in, he trips over the
ottoman.
The ottoman, thank you, because she moved it. At least that was in the first couple of seasons, and then he finally visits there, he jumps over it. Okay, but that's why you need Shabbos lights, because you may move something that you're going to, the husband's going to walk in, he's going to trip, he's going to start yelling, it's not going to be fun. Okay, so he says the first two reminders, have you tied and have you prepared the Erev, are set in question form, for it is not immediately obvious whether produce has been tithed or not. Kindle light, on the other hand, is said in the form of a command, for it is obvious whether or not the lamp has been lit, and one should find out if it has not been. And should one find out it has not been, he would declare that this task still needs to be performed. So, okay, Hitler got in there, fine. So now, he says, the Mishnah stated that on Friday before dark, one should, among things, remind his household to kindle the Shabbat light. So the question is, where does the Torah say this? Where do they get this from? We have to light your Shabbos candles. Where does it come from? Which is an interesting question because it's a rabbinic injunction.
Yeah.
The rabbinic injunction was to have shalom bayis. That's all.
What?
Shalom bayis, which is peace in the house. Again, if it's dark, I'm going to walk in. I'm going to trip. I'm going to hurt myself. So because you moved the furniture, you did something. So I tripped. I didn't see it. Now I'm going to have a fight with it. Why'd you move it? You see it's dark.
Well, there's a difference. Those can't. How long did those Sabbath candles last back then? Because tonight, I mean,
They could have lasted 24 hours, and there was like a yard side
that's
there.
my. Well, isn't that like lighting a candle in advance, so you don't have to light candles during Sabbath?
Yeah, you can't light candles.
I know that. So you have to.
But
turn
let's
on
say
the
you're
oven, you
poor.
have to do all those
Let's say
things.
you're poor and you don't have you want to save lights. You want to save candles. You didn't have candles. So you're saving it. So you didn't light it. You have to
Yeah,
be
but
told.
I know. But today, I'm saying
So
the
it's 3 hours. Now they ask 3
Today,
hours.
the candles are purely ceremonial. They're not used for light as much, so they don't have to last as long. But
Still,
the tradition of
okay.
lighting them
Right, but
continues.
and these days they didn't have that. But
Yeah,
they had the long-lasting candles. But you're right. Certainly today it is. Well, it's interesting. You know, you say it's ceremonial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I don't mean it's not important. I
No.
mean
You say ceremonial. So what happened was it happened a couple of times. One is when my parents were already kid-free. So what happened was they lit the Shabbos candles. My mother did that every Shabbos. She lit the Shabbos candles, and lo and behold, electricity went out.
Wait, what?
Electricity went out.
Oh,
Blackout.
the light.
Light was out. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened? If not for the one thing that Jews don't worry about is a blackout because we have Shabbos candles. So we have Yotza candles.
Very
Put them
good.
around the house. That's all you do. And so my parents mused that was like a romantic dinner. They have the candles. So yeah, but if the candles weren't lit, the house would have been dark.
Mm.
So in reality, those candles do give light.
It was a
So
practical thing.
it was a practical thing. Just this past Shabbos, my timer, I myself messed up. It's my fault because I didn't set the timer properly. And I had lit the candles because my wife wasn't there. Baruch Hashem, she wasn't there because she would have yelled at me for not having the candle. I'd said it anyway. But I came home and I laughed. I said, oh, look at that. Shabbos candles are important right now. I have no light otherwise. So it really is a matter of shalom bayis because the candles are not bound by electricity. So, sometimes they cease to be ceremonial and indeed become very utilitarian. But normally you're right. Normally it is just some further sanctification of my way of sanctifying the Shabbat by lighting these candles. But the question is again, that's what the Gemara is asking, where do you get this from? Where do you get the need for this? Okay, so it says, Minani Mili, how do I know that I need this? From the Torah. So Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, he quotes the verse as Amar Kra. The verse says, V'yadati ki shalom ahalecha, that you shall know that there's peace in your tent. Ufakadata navcha ve'lotechatab, and you shall command your abode, and you will not sin. So he says in 23 here, that's a verse from Job. The verse is interpreted this way: you shall know whether there is peace in your tent. You will see whether a lamp which will increase peace in your home is burning in your abode. If not, then command your abode and you will not sin. Remind your household to kindle one. Okay? And so the Gemara comments, is Amar Rava Barahuna, Alf Al-Gav, the Amar Rabbanan, even the rabbi said that on the Sabbath Eve, Shlos Daram Sarich, Adam Lamed, the three things that I mean to say, Tzarech L'Merneu B'Nechuta. Still, one must take care to say these things gently, so that his family members will accept a reminder from him and not reject it out of resentment. He said, even though the Mishnah implies that the head of the household is unflinchingly obligated to see that these tasks are done, still he should not speak in a forceful, toneful tones, but rather address his family gently. Now the question is, why do you have to address the family gently? So this is an interesting take from the Eitz Yosef. I just have to find it again. Yeah. So it says, the Eitz Yosef says on this, doing it nicely, perish. B'lashon racha, in a soft language, because forbidden for man to put fear, extra fear, on his household. Why? Because of this fear and trepidation, they are going to profane the Shabbat, because sometimes they're going to light the candles on Shabbat because they're afraid of you. You're going to rule with an iron fist, and you're going to come in and say, "Did you light it? Why did you light it?" So what's going to happen is they're going to pass the time. They're going to light it so they don't have to hear you. They're afraid of you. Okay? And they're going to cook. They also may cook, and you wouldn't know. So if I'm sometimes they'll be eating something that's forbidden to be eaten because they cooked it after Shabbat. Right? I want my soup hot. So I don't want it cold. So now you have to increase the flame. You didn't know how to do it, you dingbat, blah, 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 blah. So you don't want to do that. Dingbat was from the old Archie.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, sometimes he's going to have relations with the wife when she has not gone to the mikvah, because she'll be afraid to say that she didn't go to the mikvah because it was cold. There was the mikvahs those days, they weren't like we have today. You go to the mikvah today, it's nice and heated, it's a beautiful pool, 80 degrees, whatever it's going to be. You go in. But in those days, it was a river. Okay, the rivers are cold. They didn't have the heating elements. So she's afraid to tell her husband because she's going to yell at her. So she doesn't tell him anything. So now you transgressed a prohibition, a biblical prohibition from the Torah, and you had relations with your wife when she wasn't, when she was still in the state of nida. She had not yet gone to the mikvah, and therefore you get spiritually cut from the Jewish people, all because you made her fear you. So that's why they're saying in all these things, make sure you do it gently. You don't want to create that atmosphere of fear and trepidation because it's going to lead you to no good. So that was an interesting thing that he brought up. Okay, so now we go.
There's sort of another reason too. It's
Yeah.
because doing those things is it ought to be considered a privilege, not a series of. Well, they are commandments, but they ought to be things that we get to do rather than that we have to do.
100%. And if you have the right attitude, it changes everything. But the problem is that some people are
I know what you're saying. They're too caught up in this world.
they're too caught up in the power trip. You need to do this now.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a nice way to do it, but that's how people do it, and that's the problem that you run into. So if I'm going to, so the rabbis are saying you need to run the household, but you also have to do it nicely. You can't do it like a bulvan. You can't do it like a bully. Okay, now we go to, okay, this is for the people out there in YouTube land. Now we go to 34b1, and we're looking at Amar Rabba Bar Huna. Is it defined here? I want to make sure it's here.
Mine is a definition of twilight.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure it's for people in YouTube land. I have to always make sure I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I said that already. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. That's what I said. Okay. So it says, Ezehu, where is it here? Oh, Ezehu ben Ashmashot. So when, again, that's 34b1. So it says, when is ben Ashmashot, which means between the
between sunset and dark.
yeah, between sunset and dark. And that's what it comes to, between the suns. That's what it really means. But okay, so he says, Mishatishka hachama, once the sun has set. So it says the bright would seem to imply, refer to the evening, everyday meaning of sunset, when the disk of the sun disappears below the horizon. This indeed is how the bright is understood according to Rav Hai Gaon and Rav Shira Gaon, and is the interpretation that we shall adopt. Fine. However, so Rabbeinu Tam, however, asserts that the bright refers to a second sunset, Ben Shmashot, the setting of the sun's rays, which occurs well after the ball of the sun is no longer visible on the horizon. And this becomes a major debate in Jewish law. When is Ben Shmashot? And now we know from up till sunset, just to understand what's going on, up till sunset, we can daven mincha. It's not Shabbos. Clearly, according to all opinions, it's not Shabbos.
That's when at least some of the fireball is still visible. In other words, the bottom is already sunk below the horizon and some is still visible. That's still not yet sunset.
Right. But the question is it just the sun below the horizon that creates that? Or, and that's the end, that's mincha's over, is now the next day? Or is it, no, I have to wait for the stars to appear? Okay, that's going to take anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes.
You still have a lot of,
sometimes 74.
Once the fireball disappears, you still have a lot of light.
A lot of light. And so you can go all the way to actually 72 to 90, depending on where you are in the longitude and latitude of your place. Like here, it's extremely late because of the longitude and latitude that we are, as compared to Israel, which has, I was told, I never thought about when I was there, but they say 20 minutes from sunset to dark, 20 minutes.
So it would have to be more, in other words, you're saying longitude wouldn't matter. Latitude is, it would be where you are north to south.
And also
because where you are east to west, because the globe is spinning, so that wouldn't matter. That's just a plain summarize. But Israel, so would it be like in South Florida would be very close to where Israel is.
Okay. That's why they call it Little Israel.
latitudinally.
Latitude.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be, in other words, I wonder what. Yeah, we have to get a globe here and shine a flashlight to see what it is.
Right. That's what happens.
Yeah,
But-
but it's also cocked over. It's
Yeah,
not this way.
sure. Yeah.
right. Okay. So
Yeah.
let's go on. So now
Yeah.
it's like I said. The first thing is
Yeah.
coals. So when's the sunset? Kol zaman shepnei mizrach ma'adim. And as long as the eastern face of the sky is reddening, that is ben hashmashot. When the bottom of the sky, the part of near the horizon, has darkened, but the upper part of the sky is not yet darkened, ben hashmashot. This is ben hashmashot. That's the definition of ben hashmashot. So he explains the clouds on the eastern horizon appear red from the glint of the sun's rays. The term face to the east, Pnei Mizrach, is somewhat ambiguous. The Gemara initially assumes that it refers to the sky over the eastern horizon. Since the sun sets in the west,
Yeah.
the eastern horizon is the first part of the sky to darken after sunset.
Yeah.
Okay, the upper part of the sky takes longer to darken than the sky just above the eastern horizon. The Breita here states that when the eastern sky is darkened, but the upper reaches of the sky are still light, it is ben hashmashot. The Gemara later notes that the Breita seems to contradict itself. For just previously, it seemed to say that ben hashmashot occurs at an earlier stage when the eastern sky is still red. Okay, so that is your basic foundation. In other words, where are we? Now, in Ben Hashmashot, let's understand why we need to know that too. In other words, if I go from sunset to night, like that, so 1 second thing. So I go from, not even 1 second, but it's there. It's 1 second here, 1 second there. Fine. That's simple. Day, night, right? Evening, morning. Okay, but if I have, so then let's take this Friday night sunset would be the beginning of Shabbat. So I can't do anything. There's no wiggle room. Okay. On the other hand, if I have this thing called Ben Hashmashot, now I have wiggle room, right? Because it's coming down, and it's not yet darkened, it's still light, and so on and so forth. Now I have, let's say, 20 to 40 to 72 minutes.
And this is Friday night, right?
Friday, we're not talking about Friday nights, right? It works out other times too, but let's.
I want to hear it coming out of Sabbath as well.
Oh no, they're certainly there. Certainly there. So the question be, when must I stop working, and when can I resume working? Okay, so that again, if it would be sunrise, sunset, and that's it, it's all done. I look on my trusty Google, whatever it's called, the weather app. I see sunrise, sunset. I know exactly what's going on, and I have till that moment. On the other hand, if I have this ambiguous area, so now I have that much room to play with. It doesn't mean I can break Shabbos. What it does mean is, let's say my lights are on or something happened. I can go to my trusty non-Jew without any tricks and say, by the way, I need you to help me turn this light on, turn that all up, blah, 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 and it's not breaking Shabbos. Because you can do that, Ben Hashmashot. Because there's a question. It's not solidified. On Shabbos, I can't do it. But Ben Hashmashot, it's that ambiguous time, so I can still get away with certain things, and without any hinting. If I would be,
You're not getting away with anything.
I'm calling it non-Jew. Again, the light is off, light is on. Whatever I need to do, okay, whatever I messed up on. So now I bring the non-Jew and Ben Hashmashot and say, hey, do me a favor. I need this, this, and this. Why can't you do it? Because it's nearly Shabbos. Okay, but I can't do it because the rabbi said not to, because we want to make a fence. So the fact that I have to get somebody else to do it, it reminds me the next week, don't be such an idiot and get it done the right time. But nonetheless, that's my time zone. Or let's say I'm on the highway, I'm driving. Okay, so again, sunset is I'm running into sun or candlelighting time. I'm running into candlelighting time. Fine. So now I know I have 20 minutes more than that, or 18, but again, whatever the time zone is going to be. So I have that much time. So even though most people are off the road, I have another 20 minutes to shoot into that place. Okay, without any tricks. Now, if I go to Ben Ashmashal again, I'm working with tricks, but I'm not breaking Shabbos yet. That's the beauty of Ben Ashmashal. We're not sure what it is yet. And that's why we have to know that, what's going on here. So that's why they're giving you all these things, is that when the sun descends and is no longer visible to the eye, in other words, but it went down the horizon, but it's still light. It's still light, still very light. Or is it, and as it goes down, when does it finally turn into night? Now, I've been on the highway many a times on a regular day, okay? And I was driving from Boston to Maine. So I was working in Maine. It would be, it was the summertime, so it would be like around 9 o'clock and still broad daylight. Okay, and then as I would keep going, around here the same thing, by the way. And then, but as it's getting darker, sunset was, let's say, 9:15. So 9:15, so you see the sun going down, is down, and it now in front is twilight. In the back, I look at my rearview mirror, light, total light. If I was a Hasidic guy, I would daven mincha at that point. I could still daven mincha by that.
Would you be driving east or west?
I'm driving east, but the west in the back of me.
Facing sunset, so
Right, but in the back of me is still light.
Yeah.
So I could daven mincha. I would look and say, well, it's still light out there. What's going on here? Okay, so in other words, in my mind, it's not yet dark yet. It took 72 minutes for it to be finally dark in all parts.
I got one for you. When we were in Sweden in 1963, my father stayed up all night taking pictures. He took 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. What you're saying right now is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Where?
Sweden.
But
Then what?
again, you have to wait. It
6
depends on.
months?
No, you're not gonna wait 6 months. No, there comes a point where it comes
Like
darker.
practice, you have to decide something.
No,
You
it
can't
comes
wait.
dark. I'm saying even in Sweden, there are certain places like the Arctic Circle that you don't. That's where we have ways to deal with that too. But there you're looking at this where the sky is when the sun is in the sky, it goes around.
Yeah.
So that's how you're checking
A
time.
Jewish calendar that shows candle lighting times.
Where?
Where? What?
I'm saying where.
That's my point.
So I'm saying it all depends where
Would
you are.
vary wildly.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, from here to Boston is an hour. It's at least an hour.
Yeah.
In Toronto, they do things different than Boston, probably.
Yeah, again, we call it's an astronomical thing. It's all sunrise, sunset. Yep, 100%. But that's what you're doing. So it says now. It says Mipnei ma amru. Oh, am I still there? No, I want to.
This refers to after the upper and lower. This goes on to talk
Right,
about
right.
walking.
So I just So I have to just get to the bottom of this. And so, okay. So he says, Vahashta, the takton, and it has attained the same color as the sky, as the bottom of the sky. Zehu Laila. So in other words, when the top and the bottom are equal, they're both dark. This is night. And the period of twilight is over. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda. On the other hand, Rabbi Nehemiah said, Kidei sheyahalich adam mishatishka hachama chatzimel. Once the sun sets, beta shmashot lasts the time it takes for a man to walk half a mil, after which it is night. What's a half a mil? So he says approximately 9 minutes. So from the time of sunset to approximately 9 minutes later, 10 minutes later, whatever it's going to be, that is what he's calling ben shmashot. That in between time, that twilight, if you will, and then it's night. She says a mil is equal to 2,000 amo. The Gemara elsewhere states that an average person can walk 40 mil in a day. Thus, it would take 18 minutes to walk a single mil, assuming that the Gemara refers to a 12-hour day, or 9 minutes to walk a half a mil.
Is that mil with 2 L's? Because mine says
1 L.
1 L. Well, mine says mile.
No, it's not a mile. It's not a mile. It's a mil. I'm sure it does say that, but it's not a mile. It's a mil.
Yeah,
Because a mile would take approximately 20 minutes to walk.
half a
So
mile.
a mil is probably a quarter of a mile.
Well, I was wondering when I saw this, did they even use miles back then?
No, they didn't use miles.
Well, that's, yeah.
No, they call it mil. So I'll just give the time to walk a mil as 24 or 22.5 minutes. That would be more the mile, by the way, in which case it would take 12 minutes to walk. So you have anywhere from 9 to 12 minutes from, according to Rabbi Nehemiah, to walk the
Okay, it's about a half a mile, yeah,
to
roughly.
walk that, right? So that would be the time. So what you look at is the time from the ball falls below the horizon. You have that much time, according to that opinion. According to that opinion, no, you wait until it's dark. The entire thing is dark.
Yeah.
So once it's dark, that's night.
Wow.
By the way, that comes into saying Shema. That
Ah.
comes into, if I want to say, Shema, Kiddush, all these things, anything, counting Omer, where I need the nighttime. That's when I have to know what time frame I'm looking at. So depending on which opinion I take, okay, either it's Nehemiah or Yehuda at that point. So it's going to be a massive difference in time of when I can do certain things. Okay, when does Shabbos end? When Shabbos begins, I am supposed to add close to Kol anyway. I'm supposed to add from the holy to profane. So I'm going to bring it in before that time. That's not a question. Nobody's going to wait till Vaday night, till certainly night on Shabbos. That's, if you do, you're breaking Shabbos. So we always bring it early anyway. But leaving Shabbos, that's when you have this. Some people will daven with us. They'll say Mariv, but they're not ending Shabbos off. They sit here for another until 72 minutes pass.
Yeah.
We're holding 42. They're holding another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about that opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, ultimately Rabbi Tom, to say what's going on. But they're looking at, again, when is the entire sky black from beginning to end? They don't have to worry about it. Okay, that's Vaday night. Why would you do that as opposed to the other way? Because you want to be certain that you don't break Shabbos, as compared to the other guys who are, it's a question. You could argue, but really, Shabbos logically is over when the sun goes below the horizon. That's a logical statement. But again, since it's light, we don't want to, and we want to maintain the holiness as long as we can, as it were. We don't want to break God's law. There's God's law you're dealing with, not man law. So we want to go stringent. That's why we have this rule of, well, let's stop here, but that's why we have this rule of when it's biblical, you go stringent. When it's rabbinic, you go lenient. Because the rabbis, even though we respect the rabbis, we love the rabbis. I am a rabbi, but we love us. But nonetheless, we recognize that we're only trying to figure out what's going on and make nice fences. So when we notice a fence, we can go a little lenient when we need to. But when Hashem gave the Torah, he didn't say, by the way, I'm merely suggesting to you. No, he said, I'm commanding you. As a
There's another
commandment, you have to
difference.
do it.
We've talked about north and south. We've talked about east and west. There's another great big difference. For a land as tiny as it is, Israel still has some massive elevation differences. And if you're up on a hill, that's entirely different.
That's a
If
good.
you're
What do you
stuck
go
in the
by if
mountains-
you're
Oh, so no,
elevated? What do you go by if you're elevated? By that,
You
is
would go by the
your visible horizon
From
or
from
the
Dead
sea
Sea
level?
to the
Right.
mountains, and
right.
this is
So
from the
I'm
top
not 100% sure. I think I forget how. I'm
Like
not sure.
Denver,
I'm
you're a
not sure.
mile above.
you would see light longer up high.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure.